like, yeah, it's okay, Oh, he busted his knee up a little bit. He'll be fine,
Right.
I'll tell you. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, I know what you mean. I think remember we used to have recess. You'd run and run and run. Oh my God, there's no end to it. There was no end. And I see.
Not a whole lot of running anymore.
Oh yeah. Well, I do from time to time, but it's more when I can squeeze it in. That's about it.
I only run if a dog's chasing me or there's a fire.
And it better be a big fire, right? Right, Marcy? Right. It better be a big fire, not these small ones. Because we're in Texas. If it's not a big fire, it doesn't mean much.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. Oh, I'll tell you. And then dealing with all this stuff that's going on. It was very interesting. I thought that we went over to the rodeo for the first time this last week.
Mm-hmm.
And the wife loved it. She saw the cattle and the pigs, and like I couldn't pull her away. She'd go in all the pens and everything, and I'm like, I don't think we're supposed to be going in the pens. I think those are for the owners, right? I said, that don't matter. They're not here. Pig don't care, right? Okay. So she is having fun. I think the only thing, if they had a few lambs and such, but if they had we spent like half the morning there, and I'll tell you, I was like, I was in hog heaven. I was just it was fun. Everyone's having a good time, and they're all showing their pigs. They're all showing the cattle off, and everyone's like so excited. And I'm like, I've never seen people so excited about pigs in my life, But it was a good time. I love rodeo. It's nice. It really it's a part of Houston that you can't get anywhere else. It's really nice, and the people are just. You got most down to earth people in the world. Like there's a giant haystacks, with propane tanks, and his giant sign says "Do not smoke," and there's like 5 or 6 of them chain smoking right next to it. And like, I've been around that all my life. They got signs everywhere. I'm going to smoke right here. I'm like, I love Texas.
Hey, Doctor.
Yes,
Dr. Wu. Just so you know, there's a German festival in Tomball coming up.
When is it next? If it's next week, that'll be heaven.
It's the 25th to the 27th.
It is next week.
Well, and you might as well come up because the Montgomery County Fair is coming up, and it's another rodeo and music and all kinds of good stuff.
It will be nice. I'll be out there a lot.
Yeah,
it's in Humboldt. Where's it at?
That one's in Tomball. The German Fest is in Tomball.
Okay.
And the county fair is North Conroe, up by the airport.
I love fairs. I gotta figure out how to spell Tombolt. Tombolt.
I'm gonna send you the screenshot of the the article
because I'm not
I'll email it.
The smartest guy in the thing. Yeah, I love fairs. I was in Minnesota for 2 years, and those people do fairs right. The summer comes along because they're all locked up in ICE prison for 6 months, right? So it's like every other day or every other week, every weekend is a fair, right? And they're like massive, and music and everything, and I just love it. I love fairs. They're just the best. And the problem is you can't get a decent funnel cake here. That's the ring, if you can't get a decent funnel cake, it's really not a fair. You know what I'm saying? So
they're not bad in Conroe.
Yeah.
They're not bad.
I haven't tried them. But I got to get a decent funnel cake and a corn dogs, funnel cake. That makes it fair. Well, bud, we'll get you going. John, you want to head off? And
yep, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And
yes, sir. You are the man of the hour. I'll let you introduce yourself. You are
Yes,
you
sir.
know what you're doing, so I'll let you be
We'll,
the
we'll
boss.
go ahead and do that, and hopefully this works. There we go. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Stacy. We're going to be, it's right after lunch. And I know everybody's probably going to try to go to sleep. And when you start talking about strategic planning, maybe it's not all that exciting, but I'm going to try to make sure that you don't go to sleep. So I'm John Stacy. I've got over 40 years of business experience, really in all functions of life, operations, finance, supply chain, and manufacturing. Chief operating officer for several companies, as well as a chief executive officer. Was in the Ohio Army National Guard a number of years ago. And really my mission is to bring my experience and help the community really help local businesses grow. With that, today, real quickly, we're going to be really talking about building for success, strategic plan components. We're going to spend a little bit of time on that, why plans fail, but then we're going to spend some time really on customer discovery and really give some examples of some things that we've done to help and see how planning really helps your business grow. So when it comes down to it, if you've built a house before or built any kind of building, the foundation I really look at for a building is your strategic plan. And when you start building a building, you just don't go buy materials. You start there and you have a drawing put together. You decide where the plumbing's going. You decide where the electrical is going. You decide where everything is going to go. And you spend a lot of time on that to make sure that you know what the outcome is or what the building is going to look like. Your strategic plan is really the same thing. It is the foundation of your business. It's the same planning process you would go through as if you were building a building, and you need to go into that much detail to make sure you're successful. And so why do I say that? Well, if you think about it, over 42% of all businesses have a written plan, or only 42. And these businesses that had a plan grew 50% faster. So if you want to grow, having a plan is going to help you grow 50% faster. And guess what? People made more money. So if you really want to make more money and have your business grow, part of that, the recipe for success is really putting together a business plan. Well, there we go. So we're going to talk a little bit about the components of a business plan. And what I really work with from a client's perspective is really looking at putting together a one-page business plan. And in the corporate environment, we would generate, books of plans and strategic planning, those kind of things. I really utilize some things with scaling up and mastering the Rockefeller habits with Vern Harnish. Also some things with traction or Gino Wickman. Some real good books that can help you put together a pretty simple strategic plan. The first part really is all about putting your value and purpose and why you're doing what you're going to be doing. And I really kind of talked about values because if you want to get results, it all starts with the values that you have as an organization. And so values drive your culture or defines your culture. Culture really then helps you determine what actions some people or what your actions people want to take, and those actions are going to drive results. So that's why it's so important to really define your values. So that's one of the first components. The second component is really a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and trends. It's really understanding what you're good at, what your opportunities are, and what's potentially going to impact you from a business perspective. The third thing really goes into, or the third component is really putting together, really start with a 3-year plan, putting together a 1-year plan. But on the 3-year plan, we really talk about what are the main things that we want to accomplish in this next 3 years. We take that down to 1 year. What are those 3 to 5 things? We call them key initiatives. What are those key initiatives which we take down to 1 year, which are actually an accountability that we do on a quarterly basis. So as I'm working with people, for example, we define what we're going to get done every quarter. You can't say this is what I want to do in 5 years and hope you get there, or 3 years. You really need to know what you want to get to in 3 to 5 years, take it down to 1 year, and then take it down to a quarter. What can I accomplish in the next 91 days, and who's going to do it? So those are, to me, kind of the critical components, and there's KPIs and there's other or key performance indicators. So there's a lot of those things built around building your strategic plan, but those are the primary components that are going to help you get there. And again, the 2 books or 3 books really comes down to some things written by Vern Harnish and Gino Wickman. However, there's a lot of really good information out there. Those are just some good examples of some things that I work. And really, when it comes down to it, real quickly, there's things that when it comes to defining your time frame, accountability is all about what you're doing weekly or daily. Scheduling things on a weekly basis. We've talked about actions, which are done quarterly. We talked about initiatives, which is kind of your what, and capabilities, which is where, and that's your 3 to 5 years. And I know I'm going quick. We've only got 30 minutes, and your purpose and your core values. But I think the critical thing, I started off talking about core values or your values, and those things are things that are about you that should be that way forever. Your values aren't going to change. So when it comes down to how do you drive accountability, it's really understanding what you need to do on a daily, weekly, and quarterly perspective. And another good book is, as we're kind of talking, it kind of outlines the same thing, is called The One Thing. It's another interesting book that kind of helps you think about what your planning process may look like. So real quickly, why do strategic plans fail? Okay, well, the five particular things. People sometimes just plan for planning's sake, and then they put it on a shelf and don't use it. So just because you're planning doesn't mean you're going to have to be successful. You have to be able to execute your plan. The second thing is really not understanding the environment of the workplace or the marketplace, and that really comes down to some of those things that we did from a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats and trends. If we don't understand what's going on in the environment, then the odds are we could potentially fail. Next thing is people, not having the right people involved, lack of commitment, whether the lack of commitment's on your part or the people that you've got working with it. But it's all about having the right people in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. So when it comes down to it, not having the right people involved is one of those things that you could fail. One of the things I've seen, which is number 4, is accountability. It is so easy as an owner to say, I'm tired, I'm not going to do it today. I said I'm going to do it today, but I don't get it done because I can do it tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. So that no accountability or follow through is one of those things. So even if we do everything right and we plan, but we don't live up to our own commitments to ourselves, then the odds are we could fail. And then having unrealistic goals to achieve. Okay, so you're a startup and I'm going to achieve $1 billion next year. Well, it's not realistic. It's not going to happen. So you're going to feel like a failure. So those are really 5 reasons why a strategic plan fails. So I guess maybe I'll open it up here for a second. I went through that really that's a 2-hour presentation in 10 minutes. So does anybody have any questions about any of the points that I was making as I was going through this?
I could, Marcy, let me go first real quick.
Okay.
If I could share something, one of the things that I've noticed about a lot of these plans is what they're usually a lot top down, especially with, like, let's say mid-sized companies, because smaller companies, not a big issue, but let's say mid-size, like anywhere from like 25 to 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is they don't get buy-in from the other employees. So you have a plan, but you don't tell anyone else, right? Or even worse is you don't include everyone else in some of the initial plannings. You don't have to do it all. Clearly, there has to be some aspects that you're, accountable for. But we don't, like when I used to run companies, because I've run 7 companies before, my biggest failure was I didn't include some of the key people initially up front in my planning, and I just made the plan. How could you overcome that? How can we include, people, and maybe because some of our people that are in our group today are from the VEB. They run smaller companies. But how can we include our vendors, maybe our stakeholders, as a part of the strategic plan? Because, we sometimes forget that stakeholders are also a part of our business. So that's kind of a two-part question there.
Well, so the first part is communication, and it's communication with the employees. There's pieces that can be communicated with really all the stakeholders, and whether it's the vendors or your employees. So there's a communication piece and ongoing communication related to those things. So if there's goals that are set, so we have KPIs that we're going to develop in the strategic plan. One, they ought to be asked what's important, or what they believe is important, so that they are involved and can engage, and therefore have some ownership. Because if there's no ownership, it's just you as the owner that really ends up communicating it. So it really comes down to having the people engaged or help in certain parts of the strategic plan. And each one of those are going to be a little different depending upon the size of the company, depending upon what the products are. So it really ends up being dependent upon a number of different factors, but it is to communicate and get your employees to buy into it, set some targets, put things up in the walls. I've got, one of my clients, we post some key performance indicators on a weekly basis. And guess what? They have an incentive at the end of the year. We've set some targets. And last year we set a target, I think, of 1.3 million. We hit 1.4, but they got a week off between Christmas and New Year's paid, which to the employees was great. So they knew what the targets were, so they can buy into it. They accomplished that, and there was an incentive at the end. So there's a lot of different ways to communicate. Every company is going to be doing a little bit different, and it really depends upon a lot of factors, but you're exactly correct. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yep. Anybody else before we go forward?
Number 3 is a big issue for us because we're a volunteer organization. So it's hard for us to get the right people, because what we get is just what we get. And those people are subject to change. We have a lot of turnover in those things, those positions. And then inability to change is a big deal with some of our older population, that whenever the younger folks come in, and vice versa. Is there anything you can suggest regarding those issues?
Well, I don't know that they're well, they are a little different, but I'm not sure that they're super different from an organization or a non-profit or a profit company versus a nonprofit. I think that we have a lot of the same issues. It still comes down to how do we get them engaged and to buy into what we're trying to accomplish. And I think that the upside with the nonprofit is that people have a heart, they have a passion to help. So generally, what your charity is, what you're helping with, whether it's the homeless or whether it's helping pets or wherever, people come to you with a passion. And so how can we tap into that passion to get them to buy into what you're doing? And I think that becomes pretty exciting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll kind of move forward. I was going to give you a couple of different examples from some clients, and just to show you the value and the power of putting a plan together and what the potential impact is. So 2 years ago, I started to work with a marketing company. This guy was probably 12 years old now. He was a classic entrepreneur. He is, once a month when I started working with him, he wanted to change. I want to do this, and he was going a particular direction. 2 weeks later, he's going, well, that's not working. Let's do this. And then 2 weeks later, that's not working. Let's do this. And we're going, well, time out. Let's really step back. And his business was really focused, the marketing company, really focused on larger projects for small businesses. So he was really doing, we'll call it $5,000 to $15,000, $20,000 websites. Okay. Well, and the challenge with him with COVID, things had died. He was almost out of business. He it was difficult to get those size of projects, and it was all project based. And so if you're only one or two people and you're doing the selling, and then you got to go build it, he had these big up and down peaks and valleys, and he really couldn't get done what he needed to get done. So he's working 60, 70 hours a week and getting, falling farther behind. We stopped things, and we really sat back and started building a plan about what he wanted to accomplish. And we went through those steps that I went through briefly earlier. And we totally changed his revenue strategy. And we really focused on recurring revenue. And recurring revenue is, we're providing a product every month, and we just automatically bill clients every 30 days, and they automatically pay. And we started off with the new strategy, and he was doing a little over $10,000 a month, which is really nothing. He was barely able to pay himself. And he's within a month, we were getting 3 to 5 new clients a month. The average client was $600 a month. But we built this recurring plan, and we've talked, and I made sure that we kept focused on building the plan, building clients. And we've gone really in the last 18 months, we've gone from 10 clients, we now have 70 clients. And the COVID year, he did 130,000. He in 2021 did 411. This year, we're going to top 750,000. And it really was because we put a plan together. His income is up substantially. But with this plan that we put together, and I kept him focused on the goal, because the goal was focusing on recurring revenue. It wasn't big game hunting, looking for 5, 10, 15, $20,000 websites. It was about getting $600 a month. And well, does that make sense? Well, it does, because you got 70 customers, which are easy to maintain. Nothing is customized. We do everything is focused on, and this is all to do with content development and posting on Google My Business and Facebook, et cetera. But it was all focused on a simple, easy to execute product or service that we could replicate over and over and over again. And so we went from, he had gotten to 1 employee, there's now 10 employees. And we expect, like I said, 20 this year, about 750. It could be north of that. And we'll be coming out of that, building that business model that he'll be cracking well over $1 million the outgoing year. That's just one example, because we took the time to step back, go through that planning process, change our service, change our product, but focus on what we know we could execute flawlessly, and do something different than other marketing companies, because other marketing companies have a challenge when it comes to keeping clients. Our retention rate's about 90%, which is substantially better than most marketing companies. So that's just one example of one company and what we've done over the last couple of years by putting that planning process together and working on executing flawlessly. Any thoughts or questions?
What's the hardest, like, to get started with this? What's the hardest when you talk about your clients? The hardest place for them to start?
I'm not sure. Everybody's a little different. In this particular case, people want to do things their way. And even if their way has not been getting them the success that they want, is kind of the first step to be able to grasp that I'm going to need to change something. And you can sit there and say, well, gee, my business was doing this and my business is going the wrong direction. But it's hard for people to want to change. Change is hard. And in this particular case, change into a strategy, which is significantly different from where he was a challenge. But as we talked, we spent a lot of time talking through it. And as we talked through it, it made sense. I'll tell you that, a large part of the marketplace, there's going to be, I'll probably take it into thirds. There's a third of people that don't want any help because they're smarter than everybody else. So it doesn't really help to talk to them, because no matter what opportunities you think they may have, they're smarter than everybody else. So we don't have to, they're not going to accept any help. There's the third on the other end that know they need help and they're willing to ask. And then there's the third in the middle that know they need help, but figure they can go to the internet and figure it out themselves. But that doesn't drive the accountability piece. And from most of the people that I see in that small business, and I'm going to kind of start up to 5 million, they're really in a situation where they know they need help, but again, it's in that group of three. They either are too smart, even though they need help. They think they can do it someplace else. Because you know what? I can ask a friend to do the internet, or those people that are going to ask for help and accept help. Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right.
John, I'm going to put the hand on you a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Would you be willing, if any of the members of our veterans here could look you up or reach out to you, maybe include some of your contact information and sit down with you and get maybe a free consult, maybe the first time they meet with you? And
yeah, I'll generally, when I meet with people the first time, we'll spend an hour and a half to 2 hours just sitting down and talking, really looking at where they are, where they're trying to get to, what kind of help they need. So it doesn't cost anything, but it gets both people to know each other. You may want to work together, you may not, but at least it gives someone to listen to, throw out some ideas about what you could do. And sometimes, I'll tell you this, most owners know what they need to do. They just need somebody asking the right questions to get them going and doing the right thing, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. It's just, I think one of the things that you said that really struck home to me is that accountability, having someone like you, almost like a third party. I usually put together myself an advisory board.
Right.
It keeps me, accountable, because if, being an entrepreneur, like you were saying earlier, we get in our head that we know what we're doing, right? But there's no one, we're out, taking care of the cows, but there's no one watching over the chicken coop, back at home, and the foxes are eating, having a heyday. So I think what you do is an amazing service, and a very needed, in reflection. Like when I started out my first business, I didn't understand the value, but you really having a third person there to oversee is really a valuable asset. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
All right, I want to go to this last one. I've kind of put together. We've got a couple more minutes. I had been working with a residential home service for several years prior to COVID, and we had built a strategic plan. He was having a problem getting over $1 million a year. He had bumped up against it. And the real goal was initially to get above $1 million a year. So we put a plan together. We did all those things that we talked about. Went from about 900,000 to 1.2 million in 2019. We were putting the plan together for 2020. We were moving forward, and guess what happens? COVID. Wow. So what do you do? And so we really, once that hit, we really said, okay, wait a minute. Our plan for 2020 doesn't make any sense anymore. We really triaged the business, and part of triaging the business was evaluating, what cash do I have on hand? What I think is going to happen to the business? What happens if it decreases 50%? What kind of cost can we eliminate? And, it's one of those things that I may have been one of the last people out the door, but it's like, okay, I'm one of the costs. So you're going to have to get rid of me at some point in time. So really, after we triaged the business, knew what was going on, I said, bye. We still can, as far as working together. But starting in 20, then that was March. It came back in January of 21, and we started putting another plan together because he was comfortable. He had enough cash. Operationally, things were going pretty well for him. So we put another plan together, really taking that base strategic plan we had, but building the plan for 2021. We actually went from 947 to 1.45 million in 2021. This we're tracking about 1.7 at this point. So, and it's not just about that. There's a lot of stuff we do with organizational structure, helping people define what you need to do. This is one example. He really needs to. He's at a point where he needs to hire an operations manager. He doesn't want to. He hasn't pulled the trigger yet because he's afraid. We're kind of working through that because on one hand we're having this discussion about I'm spending too much time. I've got all these headaches. There's a solution for it, but there's this hesitancy, and it's his decision. He knows he needs to do it, but it's going to be up to him when he makes that decision. So we'll do organizational structure. Well, it's not just financial, because your goals in life may not be all about finance. It may be about helping people. It may be about building some equity for your family. So it's a lot of different things, but when it comes down to it, we'll take a look holistically at your business and work on those things that you need to work on. And so that's kind of where we were with this particular client. But it was pretty easy once he stopped during COVID to come back. It just really hit it again and have a significant increase. And our conversations at this point are twofold because we're looking to sell the business in 3 to 5 years. So on one piece, we're talking about operations. What do we need to do to continue to grow the business and make it a more valuable asset to sell? And on the other side, starting to prepare. It's not just, it's kind of mentally to in what he's going to do once he exits the business. But a pretty interesting story. And there you go.
Well, your timing couldn't be perfect. I'll tell you, I appreciate it. And I really do appreciate the great work you do. I think, as I said earlier on, the assistance of having a third party is just extremely valuable. Is there anyone else, Marcy, or y'all have any questions?
Yeah, I was just going to comment. A lot of times, me personally, is I recognize I need help. I don't really have a problem admitting I need help. But my first thought is, how much is this help going to cost, right? And that's kind of the cycle that I get into. And so I start putting guards up, never mind the influx of spam and all this stuff that we get. As soon as you register with sam.gov and you get all these certifications, and then it's just the influx of people selling you service is very overwhelming really fast. And I'm up against, who do I trust? Who's going to just try to sell me something? And how much is this going to cost, right? So it's made it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so good point. That's one of the things. So David, if you at some point in time wanted to get together, just talk. That is a cost. That costs nothing. Number one, we can talk about what you're trying to accomplish, and everything I do is kind of custom for each particular organization. I also do work with some veteran organizations related to certifications. I'm going to recommend, when it comes to certifications, government, everybody's got different opinions. From my perspective, there's to do business with the VA and the government, federal, city, state, county. There's way too many certification opportunities out there, which every one of them cost you something, and it costs you money and time. To me, there's, depending, I'm not sure what your business is, but there are certifications, one of them primarily with the NVBDC, that certifies you for all private companies. So it's not government related type companies, which is a much bigger market out there. And for a business, the NVBDC is about, if you're under $1 million, it's about $300 for the certification, plus your time to get the information together. So there are some things that you can do related to that, but I can, if you want to get together at some point in time, we'll get you some contact information, and we can at least talk and need to have you find someone that you can trust to be able to kind of talk about those things to help you grow your business.
Now, once again, you said, can you repeat that?
NVBDC. And it's National Veterans Business Development Corporation, I think, something like that. Once you know the initials, you forget what they meant. They're located in Michigan, I think in Detroit.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Marcy, Lisa, Doctor?
Okay, I think we're good.
We're
I
good.
appreciate it, sir. Thank you, John.
You're welcome, and thanks for everybody's time, and have a great rest of this beautiful Saturday. Take care now.